Delcy Rodriguez strikes a defiant tone against the U.S. Gunmen kill over 30 in Nigeria village raid. Hello, good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. I'm Shuhaida Arifin and you're watching World Today. In her first speech as Venezuelan interim leader, Delcy Rodriguez lambasted the U.S. and pledged fealty to Nicolas Maduro, but the Trump administration has made a cold calculation. She will bow to Washington. Rodriguez is a political veteran who served as Maduro's vice president and oil minister and defended the regime against accusation of terrorism, drug running and election stealing. Yet for now, she is U.S. President Donald Trump's favorite option to lead Venezuela. The U.S. president has not ruled out deploying ground troops, but appears to want to run Venezuela through Rodriguez, who finds herself in charge of a government shocked and demoralized by the abduction of Maduro, yet still in power. The 56-year-old former Labour lawyer struck a defiant tone in her televised speech on Saturday night. She condemned the abduction of Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, and demanded their return. Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez also called on Venezuelans to get back to their daily life. Padrino denounced it as a cowardly kidnapping and said that some of the Maduro's bodyguards were killed in cold blood, as well as military personnel and civilians on the Venezuelan side. Meanwhile, the European Union on Sunday said respect for the will of the Venezuelan people was the only way to restore democracy. In a statement supported by 26 member states, all except Hungary, the EU's Foreign Affairs Chief Kaja Kallas called for calm and restraint by all actors to avoid escalation and to ensure a peaceful solution to the crisis. So far, European leaders emerged divided and torn as they tried to welcome the ejection of Venezuela's president, but still uphold the principles of international law that did not appear to allow Trump to seize Maduro, let alone declare the U.S. will run Venezuela and control its oil industry. The clearest critic was the French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot, who said the operation to capture Maduro violates the principle of non-use of force that underpins international law. He said France reiterates that no lasting political solution can be imposed from the outside and that the only sovereign people alone can decide their future. Barrot said the repeated violations of this principle by nations entrusted with the primary responsibility as permanent members of the United Nations Security Council will have heavy consequences for world security, sparing no one. The leaders of Denmark and Greenland on Sunday urged U.S. President Donald Trump to stop threatening to take over Greenland after he reiterated his wish to do so in an interview with The Atlantic magazine. Trump said this a day after the U.S. captured Maduro, and he said Washington would run the Latin American country. This raised concerns in Denmark that the same could happen with Greenland, a Danish territory. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, in a statement, urged the U.S. to stop the threats against a historically close ally to Washington and against another country. The Prime Minister of Greenland, Jens Frederik Nelson, echoed the same sentiment, saying that it was disrespectful. The Arctic island's strategic position between Europe and North America makes it a key site for the U.S. ballistic missile defense system. While its mineral wealth is extractive as the U.S. hopes to reduce its reliance on Chinese exports, Greenland, a former Danish colony, has the right to declare independence under a 2009 agreement, but depends heavily on Danish subsidies. Denmark has sought to repair strained ties with Greenland over the past years, while also trying to ease tensions with the Trump administration. Troops of Yemen's internationally recognized government entered the Arabian Sea port city of Mukalla on Sunday. This is following the government declaration that it retook the eastern port and capital of Hadramaut province from the UAE-backed southern separatists. Rapid government gains since Friday have reversed many of last month's gains by the UAE-backed main separatist group, the Southern Transitional Council (STC). Saudi-backed forces had already taken control of key locations in Hadramaut, a large province with stretches of desert along the Saudi border. Yemen, split for a decade between warring regions, sits at a highly strategic location between the world's top oil exporter Saudi Arabia and the Bab al-Mandab Strait that guards the vital sea route between Europe and Asia. The crisis began early last month with the STC seized swathes of territory, including Hadramaut, establishing firm control over the whole territory of the former state of South Yemen that merged with the north in 1990. Iranian authorities on Sunday announced they will give a monthly allowance to every citizen in the country to alleviate economic pressure after a week of protest. Government spokeswoman says individuals would receive an amount equivalent to 1 million tomans, or approximately $7 per person per month, which is credited to their accounts for 4 months. She said the amount will be given in the form of credit that can be used to purchase certain goods and is intended to reduce the economic pressure on the people. In Iran, which has a population of more than 85 million people, the minimum wage is roughly $100 and average monthly salaries are around $200. Iranians mostly use mobile phones and debit cards for their daily purchase instead of cash. Iran's economy has been grappling with biting US and international sanctions over Tehran's nuclear program for years, and December saw a 52% year-on-year inflation rate. The national currency has lost more than a third of its value against the US dollar over the past year, causing a sharp decrease in people's purchasing power and broad discontent in the country. Sunday marked the 8th day of sporadic protests in the republic over economic uncertainty in the wake of the depreciation. Myanmar's military junta has announced an amnesty for more than 6,000 prisoners, marking the country's 78th Independence Day amid ongoing civil conflict and political repression. Junta Chief Min Aung Hlaing pardoned 6,134 Myanmar nationals, while 52 foreign prisoners will be released and deported. Other inmates received sentence reductions, excluding those convicted of serious crimes or security-related offences. Authority warned that anyone reoffending would be required to serve the remainder of their original sentence, in addition to any new punishment. The annual amnesty, described as being on humanitarian and compassionate grounds, comes as the military continues to detain thousands arrested since the February 2021 coup that ousted the elected government and plunged the country into war. However, there was no indication that the release includes former leader Aung San Suu Kyi, who remains jailed and largely cut off from the public. The amnesty comes against the backdrop of a phased election launched by the junta last week, widely criticized by right groups and Western government as a bid to legitimize continued military rule. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un oversaw the test firing of cutting-edge hypersonic missiles to ready Pyongyang's nuclear forces for war. Pyongyang said Sunday's test was made all the more necessary by recent geopolitical crisis, a clear nod to this weekend's event in North Korea's ally, Venezuela. Seoul and Tokyo said on Sunday they had detected the launch from near Pyongyang of 2 ballistic missiles. It was the country's first test of the year and came just hours before South Korean leader Lee Jae-myung headed to Beijing for a summit. Lee has said he hopes to use the visit to harness China's clout over North Korea, improve Seoul's ties with Pyongyang. Kim said the missile's test was aimed at gradually putting the nuclear war deterrent on a high developed basis. Pyongyang has for decades justified its nuclear and missile programs as a deterrent against alleged regime change efforts by Washington. Hypersonic missiles travel at more than 5 times the speed of a sound and can maneuver mid-flight, making them harder to track and intercept. Coming up next, Syria begins banknote swap as government seeks economical revival. Gunmen have raided a village in northern Nigeria's Niger state, killing at least 30 villagers and abducting others in what marks the latest deadly attack in the conflict-hit region. Wasiu Abiodun, Niger police spokesman, said on Sunday that over 30 victims lost their lives during the attack. Several people were also kidnapped. Abiodun added that the gunmen stormed Kasuan Daji Market in Demo village, burning stalls and looting food items. The attackers arrived from the National Park Forest along Kabe district, according to the police, pointing to a usual trend where expensive forest reserves act as hideouts for armed gangs. Witnesses said attackers rode motorcycles and opened fire indiscriminately. Women and children were also not spared. Niger State's Borgu local government area was also the site of another attack in November when more than 300 school children and their teachers were kidnapped from a Catholic school. Those victims were released after nearly a month in captivity. Niger State has been of the hardest hit by violence in recent months. Security forces have struggled to contain the violence despite ongoing operations. Elsewhere in Nigeria, at least 25 people have died and 14 others remain missing after a boat carrying dozens of passengers capsized in Yobe State, northeastern Nigeria. Officials said on Sunday that the accident occurred just before 8 p.m. local time on Saturday when the large canoe, which had departed Adiani village in northwestern Jigawa State, overturned en route to Gabi in Yobe State. The vessel was carrying 52 passengers. According to Muhammad Goje, head of the Yobe State Emergency Management Agency, search and rescue operations are ongoing for the missing persons. Police in Jigawa State confirmed the incident and said the canoe capsized due to leakage. Lawan Adam, the state police spokesperson, said if the skipper survives, he would be prosecuted for negligence, noting that safety laws banning night journey and overloading were ignored. Deadly boat accidents are common in Nigeria, where vessels often operate without safety measures. All 40 people who perished in New Year's fire at Swiss Ski Resort Bar were identified on Sunday, with half of them under the age of 18. Local police on Sunday finished identifying the bodies, confirming their ages range from 39 to 2 who were aged just 14. Police said the victims included 21 Swiss nationals, 9 French, 6 Italians, 1 Belgian, 1 Portuguese, 1 Romanian and 1 Turkish. The bar's owners are under criminal investigation. They are charged with manslaughter by negligence, bodily harm by negligence and arson by negligence. A mass dedicated to the victims was held at a small chapel some 300 meters down the road from the guarded bar. Switzerland has declared a national day of mourning for 9 January, with all church bells poised to toll at 2 p.m. local time. Authorities have pointed that a possible cause for the fire was sparklers attached to champagne bottles, igniting soundproofing foam on the ceiling. Syrians started to swap old banknotes for new ones under a plan to replace Assad-era notes to try to strengthen the currency's value. Syria's new government, led by Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara, is seeking to rebuild state institutions and revive the economy after more than a decade of war, sanctions and financial isolation that left the local currency severely weakened. The new banknotes will have 2 zeros less than the old ones to try to restore public confidence in the severely devalued pound. Some bankers have voiced fears the new currency could drive up inflation and further erode purchasing power of Syrians reeling from high prices. However, Central Bank Governor Abdel Kader Husreih said the operation will take place through a smooth and orderly swap. Assad fled Syria in December 2024 for Russia after rebels seized Damascus following an 8-day blitz through the country, thus ending 6 decades of his family's autocratic rule, more than 13 years after an uprising had spiraled into a civil war. Syria marked earlier this month the first anniversary of the removal of Bashar al-Assad, with jubilant celebrations in major cities. Guinea's Supreme Court on Sunday validated an overwhelming presidential election victory for junta chief Mamadi Doumbouya, crediting him with 86.72% of votes. This confirms provisional results announced on Tuesday following the 28 December election that excluded opposition heavyweights from the ballot. Doumbouya, 41, who had pledged not to run for office after seizing power 4 years ago, aced 8 rivals for the presidency. The main opposition leader were barred from running and had urged a boycott of the vote. The runner-up, Abdoulaye Yero Balde, won 6.59% of the vote, also unchanged from the provisional results. Balde, who had challenged the election result in filing the Supreme Court, had since voluntarily withdrawn the complaint. After the court's announcement, Doumbouya made an address to the nation in which he called for building a Guinea of political and economic sovereignty and shared prosperity.
Menggosok baju sekaligus boleh menjimatkan elektrik.
Coming up next, Man City held Chelsea in major title blow.
Guna mentol jimat tenaga untuk lebih jimat.
The Saudi Pro League title race entered a new phase early this morning as Al Hilal climbed to the top of the table for the first time this season following a 2-0 away victory over Denmark. With more than a third of the 2025-2026 campaign now complete, Simone Inzaghi's side moved 1 point clear of City's rival Al Nassr after 12 rounds, capitalizing on Al Nassr's defeat to Al Ahly earlier in the weekend. Al Hilal's victory at Denmark never appeared in doubt. The hosts set up in a compact 5-4-1 formation in an attempt to limit space for Malcolm and Theo Hernandez, yet the visitors' pressure told. a relentless high-press forced a Damak error in the 35th minute, allowing Sergej Milinkovic-Savic to deliver a precise cross across goal for Darwin Núñez, who converted for his first goal of the calendar year. Damak offered sporadic threat from set pieces, but Muhammad Al-Rubai, deputising for Yassin Bonu, endured a largely quiet evening, called into action just once. Marcos Leonardo sealed the win 8 minutes after the break, finding space between the defence to finish after goalkeeper Kevin parried Núñez's initial effort into his path. After 12 rounds, Al-Hilal lead the standings on 32 points, marking their first spell at Summit this season. In Premier League, Enzo Hernandez dealt a massive blow to Manchester City's Premier League title hopes with a 94th minute equaliser to snatch a 1-1 draw for managerless Chelsea at the Etihad. A point is only good enough to edge City back above Aston Villa in second on goal difference and leaves them 6 points adrift of leaders Arsenal. Chelsea were under the caretaker charge of the club's under-21 coach Callum McFarlane after parting ways with Enzo Maresca on Thursday. The Gianni Reindeers had blasted City into a deserved half-time lead, but they lost central defenders Josko Vardiol and Ruben Dias to injury in the second half. Manchester City then blew the chance for 3 points in the dying seconds when Fernandes prodded in at the back post. The Blues have won just once in their last 8 league games to slip to 5th in the table, but got their reward for a sprinted second-half display to close within 3 points of the top 4. Newbury City players fell to their knees in disappointment as Arsenal closed in on their first league title for 22 years. In another match, Liverpool were held to a dramatic 2-2 draw by Fulham on Sunday as Harrison Reed scores a stunning stoppage-time equaliser. Cody Gakpo had seemingly put Liverpool on course for victory at Craven Cottage with his strike in the 4th minute of stoppage time. But Reed hauled Fulham level a superb long-range blast to dent Liverpool's push to finish in the Premier League's top 4. 4th place Liverpool are now unbeaten in their last 9 games in all competitions ahead of a trip to Premier League leaders Arsenal on Thursday. But it was another far from convincing display from the Reds following the goalless stalemate against Leeds on New Year's Day. Liverpool is struggling with absence of several key players. French striker Hugo Ekitike was absent due to a hamstring injury, and with Alexander Isak also injured and Mohamed Salah at the Africa Cup of Nations. Alexander Zverev clinched Germany's victory against the Netherlands on Sunday at the United Cup in Sydney, where the world number 3 defeated Talonko's Poor 7-5, 6-love. Zverev's win came after Germany's Eva Lee's down Susan Lemans earlier in Group F action. The server held the advantage for the early position of Zverev and Craig Spurs clash until the German seized a crucial opportunity by breaking to love at 6-5 to take the opening set. Playing his first match of 2026, Zverev produced a high level and rarely looked back, having dropped just 7 points in the second set. Earlier, a determined Leeds launched the 2024 United Cup champions off to a strong start by defeating Le Mans 6-2, 6-2. After trading breaks twice in the first 5 games, Leeds won a pair of crucial games to establish a 5-2 lead and hardly looked back. She denied Le Mans a game point to level at 3-3 before breaking on her third break point of the 6th game and secured a follow-up hold despite trailing 15-40. Zverev and Laura Sigmund closed the tie with a 6-3, 6-2 mixed doubles victory against Craig Spur and Demi Schuurs, earning a clean sweep for Germany. Great Britain also won their opening tie of the United Cup, beating Japan 2-1 in Perth despite the late withdrawal of Emma Raducanu. The British number one has not played since October, and team captain Tim Henman said the scheduled match against Naomi Osaka had come too early for her, but has said she may feature later in the tournament. Billie Harris gave Great Britain a solid start, beating Shintaro Mochizuki in the opening singles rubber in straight sets. Despite Mochizuki being ranked 29 places higher than Harris, he won a first set tiebreaker before cruising to a 7-6, 6-3 win in 1 hour and 50 minutes. Osaka was expected to face Raducanu for only the second time, but the late change meant 26-year-old Katie Swan stepped in and was dismissed 7-6, 6-1 in 1 hour and 53 minutes to level the match at 1-1. That set up a thrilling doubles decider where the teams played the best of 3 tie-break games against each other. British pair Olivia Nicholas and Niels Kupski needed 1 hour and 46 minutes to beat Japan's Nao Hibino and Yusataka Uchiyama, even though only 39 points were contested. The British took the first game before the Japanese duo leveled things up, winning the second tiebreaker. That set up a decider where the winner must get to 10 points to win the rubber. Nicholas and Skupski held their nerve to win 7-5, 4-6, 10-7 and will now prepare with the rest of the team to face Greece for a place in the quarterfinals. Japan, who lost a 3-love to Greece on Friday, have been eliminated from the competition. Thanasi Kokkinakis and Nick Kyrgios reprised their triumphant Australian Open partnership by winning their opening match at the Brisbane International on Sunday, as the Special KS also marked their return from long-term injuries. It was the first match on the ATP Tour in 167 days for Kyrgios, while Kokkinakis played for the first time since suffering a pectoral injury in January 2025 as the pair beat Matthew Ebden and Reggie Fram 5-7, 6-4, 10-8. The duo were particularly emotional in front of a packed main stadium that backed them throughout the match and gave them a standing ovation after the dramatic win, which was decided in a match tie-break. Kyrgios and Kokkinakis won the men's doubles title in the Australian Open 2022. The pair reunited ahead of last year's Australian Open, but their campaign ended in the first round due to Kokkinakis' injury. The Australian duo will face French 6 seeds Sadio Doumbia and Fabien Ribaud in the second round. Saudi Arabia's defending Dakar Rally champion Yazid Al-Raji struggled on Sunday's first full stage on home terrain, clocking up to 16 minutes of penalties as ex-Raid Mini driver Guillaume Demervius took the lead. Al-Raji was penalised for missing a waypoint and speeding and ended up nearly 29 minutes off the Belgians' lead, with 12 more stages of the endurance event to come over the next 2 weeks in Saudi Arabia. Qatar's 5-times winner Nasser Al-Attiyah was in second place for the Dacia Sen Riders team, 40 seconds behind Demervius. Czech driver Martin Prokop was in the third place for the Olen Jipokar team after 305 kilometres of competitive action around Yanbu on the Red Sea coast, with Sweden's Matthias Ekström fourth in Ford Raptor. In the motorcycle category, Spaniard Edgar Canet continued to lead KTM teammate Daniel Sanders after they finished their prologue in the order, with American Ricky Brabick third on Honda. That concludes today's edition of World Today. In our top story, Delcy Rodriguez strikes defiant tone against the US. Till then, I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Salam Malaysia Madani. Thank you for watching.